it was a dead time.
Yeah.
It was a dead time because everybody knew there was going to be an election in October. We all knew that, okay? But you still had to go to the Commons. And you see, I was Roy Jenkins' parliamentary secretary. And on top of all that, I was put on the Council of Europe. And now looking back at it, that could have been sabotage, couldn't it? By the Labour Party. To make sure, get him out of the country even, not even out of the constituency, get him out of the country. Let's make sure he loses. Because you say that, you look at that as if it's...
Now, is that when you did your speech?
Yeah, I'll come to that for a minute, but
Yes,
I'll come to this very point. The last election meeting on October was in Carmarthen with Harold Wilson there, speaking. And one of the speakers was Ray Powell, who later became the MP for Ogmore, who was the chairman of the Welsh Labour Party. As we were leaving that night, he turned to me and he said, Gwynoro, I'm going to tell you something now. There are lots of us in Wales within the Labour Party who would rather have Gwynoro Evans MP than you, because we would know the enemy then. Now, you go from there to the lines of control and influence and whispers these guys have with the union people. You spread that through those mining people, those transport working people, through those unions. And I do believe some 2,000-3,000 Labour votes were lost in that last election. I do believe they went to Gwynfor, without question. And I can never prove it. I think it was part of a campaign. He'll be out of the way because he's been a thorn since the end of the 60s. He's been a problem for us. And I had been.
And you were what suppose they perceive you to be, what George Thomas would describe.
Nationalist. You know.
So and
he's worse than that, you see, because he has a lot of publicity in the Western Mail and Radio Cymru and all. He's everywhere, isn't he? You know. We've got to work very hard to keep up with him, because he doesn't keep quiet, does he? That's what's wrong with Gwynoro, see? You know, time we got rid of him. There was an element of that, I have no doubt. But I never saw it at the time. It's only on reflection. It's only when you think back. It's only when you realise that I had been naive on occasions. And I had been. I was naive enough to think that I could take on the Labour Party in Wales. I was naive enough to think that I could say anything fearlessly without creating enemies. I was naive enough to think that what people want are politicians who speak their mind. They don't want people who speak their mind. They want people to play the game. They want people to be part of the game. And they never want you to tell them what you think. And you must never tell them what they don't like. You know what I mean? I got classic examples of some MPs in Wales. A good friend of mine, in later life, when he became, after he defeated Alaston Morgan, Geraint Howells in Cardigan. To this day, and he's passed away years ago now, to this day, no one, I defy anyone to tell me what Geraint Howells stood for, other than Geraint Howells. You know, Geraint had the great knack, and he used to tell me. I just stand on street corners, and I read a bit of Conduct Damage's book the other day. And he says that's how he was. He would stand on street corners. People would come to him. He would not go on canvas and shake hands. He'd wait for people to come to him. And Cynnog was a different character, and that's how he beat him, by being... But anyway, with Geraint, you see, you could talk with Geraint and tell him an opinion on the common market, on the unions, on devolution, on the language. And yes, I think, yeah, well, I agree with that. That's how it is. Yes, and clearly there's strong, yes. Another fella can come along. I don't want any of this nonsense. I hope you're not for devolution and the language things. Far too much of that. Too many nationalists in Wales anyway. I hope you're not one of those. Well, I can see your point. You know what I mean? Yes, it's something I'll have to think about. You never knew where he stood. But was he a popular politician? Yes. Did he last in Parliament more than I did? Yes. And I learnt a lot of lessons. But that is why probably, even though I hated losing, I really did, it upset me a bit. Laura my ex-wife used to tell me many a time, when I was trying to fight other seats later on, Gower for instance, and try to get for the West Wales seat for Europe. She used to tell me, I don't know why you want to go back there, she said. You were so unhappy. You used to come back on weekends and tell me what was going on and how you can't cope with this and how long you could last doing this sort of thing. But it was a club, you see, isn't it? You all get into the club. You all get into it. It is the best club in Europe. Don't go anywhere else. Try and go to Parliament. You'll enjoy yourself. And that's what they love about it. And don't you see the House of Commons empty when television is on? Ask yourself, what are they doing? You know, big important debates go on every week. You switch on the telly and outside Parliament, outside Prime Minister's questions and one or two other debates or Chancellor's statements or whatever, or a crisis or whatever. Ordinary debate on housing, on health, on schools. 10, 15, 20 MPs. Ask yourself, what are the other 500 doing?